Hello and welcome to another YuGiOh video, and today I'm going to be taking you through the Ultimate Orcust Combo Guide. Part 2, there is a Part 1 already on the channel which has all of the basic stuff you might need with like the Girsu combos, the Scrap Recycler combos, but today I'm going to be showing you the more advanced combos that give you the bigger boards, the more powerful endings, and this includes some really cool stuff with the Synchron version of the deck. So I can't wait to dive into this. In the description you can find all of the timestamps for every single combo, so if you want to jump forward or jump back, then you've got all the information available there. If you notice any changes that you would like made to the combos or any cool interactions that you spot, put them in the comment section and we'll be able to build the Ultimate Orcust Combo Guide. And I can't wait to take you guys through the Orcust combos. So for combo number 1, we're just going to be using one Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight. This is a slight variation on the previous combo that you will have seen in the Orcust Mech Knight combo video, and it's also been showcased on Jamie the Kid 00's channel, so you can check that out up there, and that will give you the basic version of the combo. I'm now going to show you the slightly adjusted, slightly bettered version, thanks to our gracious viewers who have given some extra information in the comment section. So don't forget guys, if you've got more information on the combos and changes that you want to make, let me know in the comment section down below. And we're going to kick off by normal summoning the Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight, and using its effect to put Orcust Knightmare into the graveyard, and then we'll summon some tokens. So one onto our side, and one, let's use this one, onto the opponent's side. We'll just put it up here for the moment. We can then turn the Perry token into a Longirsu, and we can go into our second link summon, for a Galatea. You can actually set it up to be protected from battle if you want to. It really won't make any difference because we're going to link it off anyway. Start off by using the Orcust Knightmare, banish that, target your Galatea to make it a little bit stronger, because we're going to go through the deck and put a World Legacy World 1 into the graveyard. So boosted up by 800, but totally irrelevant. We're going to banish this to bring back the Knightmare. Double protection from battle now for our Galatea. And then we're going to turn our Galatea into, oh actually sorry, we're not going to turn it into anything yet. We're going to use its effect, shuffle away this World Wand, and get us access to the Babel. Set and activate as per usual, and here is where the slight variation comes in. We're going to turn this Galatea into a Dingirsu and use the Dingirsu's effect to send from the opposing field and get rid of this Perry token. The important thing is their field is now completely open, so previously you'd leave a token on their field, which could potentially be useful. Certain decks it is actually slightly, it can actually be a real hindrance to them, because if, for example, you put it on this side, it can block off the column, so they won't be able to use that column there, and it can hit things like Sky Striker and stuff, but with the release of cards like Zeke, it's generally better to just get rid of this. So we'll use the Ding effect, get rid of that, and then we can go for the next link summon into IP Masquerena. So this preserves the previous board state where you have a live Orcust Knightmare in the graveyard, which can send a skeleton to turn on your Dingirsu, or if your opponent doesn't have an access to anything decent, you can actually revive the Galatea and potentially make a Link 4 or something here. So there's some great options here, and that's just off one card, so if you have another extender, you can go a little bit further, and you can potentially like unicorn your opponent during their turn as well as send something. So really nice setup just off the single card for that one. So the second combo uses Jet Synchron plus any discard. The great thing about this combo is it uses Link Cross to enable you to get into a much better position than what we could have done from the previous combo video. And huge thanks to Nick Burgess for pointing me in the direction of this combo. Really great to have as a way to turn Jet Synchron into an actual starter card that becomes way better when you start using the other Orcust cards as extenders. So we'll just show you the basic one and then we'll get into the various other versions of it. Start off with a normal summon of Jet Synchron, turn it into a Longirsu, and then revive it by sending a card from hand to grave, and then link these two, which will of course banish our Jet into a Halki Fibrax. Fibrax triggers and summons a Bombard from deck, and then you can turn the Fibrax into the Link Cross and get yourself 2 tokens. One of these tokens we're going to tribute in order to bring back that Longirsu. And then because these are both Cyburst monsters, you can actually link these two into a Union Carrier. And now we can use the Union Carrier's effect to attach to our Bombard in an Orcust Knightmare. And this is how we get into our engine basically. So it really didn't matter that this is an Orcust name because we can't link with this token anyway, and we can't link with a Union Carrier, but the important thing is it gives us a way to put Knightmare into the graveyard. So from here you need a way to get these two off the field. The best version that was shown to me is to just turn them into a Formula Synchron, because that gets you a draw, so take a draw, and it also puts both of those cards into the graveyard. So if you have another Orcust card in hand, you know you've got another this plus 3 more cards in hand if it's turn 1, you can then use the Bombard to summon it, as we'll show you in a few more combos. But for the first one we're just going to use the Knightmare, banish it in order to put a wand into the graveyard, banish the wand in order to bring back the Knightmare, and then you can link with these two for the Galatea. Now because there's no additional extender, we're not going to be able to go into an IP play here. We've already used the Knightmare and there's no other summon out of our graveyard. So we would need another extender in hand, which I'll show you a few variants on in just a moment. But because of that, what we're going to do is just use the Galatea, shuffle back either choice of these. I generally go for the wand because it's the better thing to send off the Knightmare later on, and that will give us access to the Crescendo. And we go for the Crescendo here because Babel just doesn't really do a lot. If you have a Babel, your Knightmare in the graveyard becomes live, but there's no like ding in the graveyard in order to trigger it. Like you can turn this into a ding and reattach the wand or something, or reattach or attach the Jet Synchron, but it just doesn't put you in a significantly better position. It seems a lot better to just leave things as they are, get yourself a negate, and then a play for the following turn. So this is Jet Synchron with a single discard. So now we get to look at the combos where you have Jet Synchron alongside Orcust Knightmare. In addition to that, you could also just play tuning, add the Jet Synchron, and maybe send the Knightmare to the graveyard. And it doesn't have to just be Knightmare, it can actually be Knightmare or Skeleton or Wand. All of those allow this combo to play out. So let's just show you guys how it works. This also assumes you don't have any other discards, because we'll get onto that one a little bit later on. Maybe you have like 3 hand traps that you really want to keep in your hand, or maybe you've got like Babel and Crescendo and some other stuff. So we'll just go through this one. So normal summon the Jet, turn it into a Longirsu like before, and then revive it, but this time sending the Knightmare to the graveyard. And then these two make the Halki Fibrax, which summons the Bombard from deck. And the Fibrax turns into a Link Cross, which gives you the 2 tokens. Same thing as before, we're going to get rid of a token to revive the Longirsu, and then turn these two into a Union Carrier. And this time a Union Carrier doesn't have to attach a Knightmare to our Bombard, so it's instead going to attach a Skeleton. So if you drew the Skeleton, you can attach the Knightmare instead, and ultimately you can actually just attach the wand regardless. So there's tons of different variations on this. You just play around with whichever one you require. So if you drew the wand, you discard the wand instead of Knightmare, and you attach Knightmare here. If you drew the Knightmare, you attach the skeleton here. If you drew the skeleton, you attach the Knightmare here. So all basically the same combo regardless. We're then going to synchro with these two in order to get our formula synchron, which will get rid of this and give us a draw. So we'll draw Phantasme again. Not bad at all. We're then going to banish the Knightmare. Target whichever one you like, it really doesn't make any difference. And this is actually going to send Girsu for this version of the combo, and then we're going to banish the skeleton to summon the Girsu here. Girsu will then send the wand, and then from here we have the ability to just banish the wand, bring back that skeleton because we'll need the skeleton in the graveyard a little bit later on. We're going to turn the Girsu and the Formula Synchron into our first Galatea. The reason why we do it this way around is because we want to be able to shuffle back the wand, because we want the Knightmare to be live next turn. So put back the wand and get yourself a Babel here. Because we're going to have multiple graveyard effects live this time around. We're then going to turn the Galatea into a Dingirsu and attach this Knightmare. And then we can link with these two because they're not link monsters, and that gives us our IP Masquerena. So off a Jet Synchron plus a discard, we're in a position where during our opponent's turn we can potentially turn these into a link 4. We have a draw here, and in the graveyard we have a live skeleton and we have a live Knightmare. Great thing is, if your opponent is trying to like blow out your resources and gets rid of these guys, the skeleton can still summon back the Girsu, which gives you additional plays beyond there. So this is just a really nice version of the combo, which puts you into a great position off just those two cards. Lots of advantage generated, so I really like this version of it. So this next combo is arguably significantly better than the previous one, but all that it requires is for you to have an additional discard on top of your Knightmare in hand. So you actually need Jet Synchron, Orcust Knightmare, or Skeleton, or Girsu. They're all interchangeable for this one, but you can't have wand in hand because we're going to use the Bombard effect, and then any discard. So we'll go with the DD Crow. So as per usual, Jet will go into Link Rebo, and we'll bring back the Jet when we send the DD Crow from hand to grave, and these two will go into our Fibrex, and Fibrex will summon the Bombard, and Fibrex will turn into Linkross, and Linkross will summon 2 tokens, and 1 token goes away in order to bring us back the Linkaribo, and then these two can be used to summon the Union Carrier. Union Carrier is then going to attach to this Bombard a World Legacy Wild Wand. Another reason why you don't actually want to have it in hand, because you need to attach it from deck. Of course, some people are playing 2 copies of this in the main deck anyway, so not an issue there. And then these two can be used for a Synchro Summon in order to bring out the Formula Synchron and give us a draw. So we've got the Knightmare and a random draw, and 2 other cards left in hand at this point. And then from here we can banish the Bombard in order to bring out that Knightmare from hand. And we can actually link summon using these two into our first Galatea, and then banish the Knightmare in order to send to the graveyard a skeleton. So basically you're always trying to put yourself in a position where you have access to wand and skeleton for the best plays. On top of that, if you have a Knightmare as well, that's pretty nice too, but you aren't normally in a situation which has all 3 of those at this point. We can then banish the wand, summon back the Knightmare, and then from here we can exise into a Dingirsu. We're not using the Galatea effect just yet because we're going to be using the Skeleton's Graveyard effect, and we want that live again. So this will attach the wand. I can talk you through a slightly different variation of this afterwards, but then we're going to link these two into an IP Masquerena, and then we're going to banish the Skeleton and revive the Galatea. And now the Galatea is able to shuffle back that Skeleton because we do want to index so that we have it live for the following turn, and that will give us access to the Babel once again, and then this is the end board. So you've got one card drawn off your combo from your Formula Synchron, Galatea, which has its quick effect, IP, and Union Carrier. So if it were possible, you could go into a Link 6 here. And then on top of that, during the opponent's turn, you can banish the Knightmare, send the skeleton from deck to grave, and then use the skeleton to revive the Dingirsu. So lots of really great options with that one. If you do want to have the skeleton in grave instead of the Knightmare, personally I don't really like it so much because I like protecting my IP, making it slightly more powerful with that Knightmare stat change. If you do want to have the skeleton instead, then you can just organize the play slightly differently. You revive the Galatea a little bit earlier, and you do your shuffle back on the Knightmare, so you leave the Knightmare banished, and this would then revive the skeleton, so that way you'd have your skeleton on field instead, and then use that to link someone into the Masquerena. So there are other options, but I think this is the best way to actually end up. So Galatea, Masquerena, live Knightmare in grave, and a drawn card of 3. Okay, so next up is a slight variation on the same combo. So these two cards are the specific ones, and then you have the one discard on top of that. The advantage of this combo is you will end up with both the skeleton and a Knightmare in your graveyard, which means you can set up like a Zeroboros to trigger with your like a Gizmek, so you don't have to worry about people getting rid of your Babel when it's on the field. The disadvantage is you won't have the same number of link materials on board. You won't have like a link 6 on board, you'll have a link 5 on board. So let me just take you through it. So normal the jet, exactly the same as all the other jet combos that we're going to be seeing. We're going to do some fun stuff. Let me just move this out of the way. Fibrex, Bombard. You have no idea how many times I've done this combo now. And then Perry Token goes into the Link Rebo, and these two go into the Union Carrier, and here is where it gets different, because instead of attaching a wand to our Bombard here, and not a skeleton either, we're actually going to attach a Girsu. I mean, technically you could attach a skeleton here. It's potentially a slightly safer play, but Girsu is a little more fun. So this is the one that we want to attach here, and you can interchange the one in hand for like a Girsu or a skeleton again. It really doesn't matter, thankfully for that one. So these 2, or I guess 3 if you want, turn into the Formula Synchron and draw a card. So that's our draw again, just going to keep drawing the Phantasma here, and you banish the Bombard to summon the Knightmare. And these 2, as per usual, go into the first Galatea. So here we're going to banish the Knightmare to send a skeleton to graveyard. So this is why I said you could potentially switch the order of these around. It really doesn't matter too much. We're then going to banish the skeleton to summon the Girsu, and Girsu is going to be the one who puts the wand into the graveyard. The great thing about Girsu is finally we have a way to summon from graveyard a card that puts wand into the graveyard and gets a body on board. You know, it's not like Knightmare where you can summon Knightmare off the skeleton, and then after you link it off you have a Knightmare in the graveyard. Whereas wand, once it's in the graveyard, you can't like summon it out. So really great to have Girsu into this format, on top of all the, you know, the one card shenanigans that we would normally have. So once we've got the Galatea here, and we've summoned out the Girsu and the wand, we can banish the wand to bring back the skeleton. I like doing it this way around, which I'll explain that a little bit at the end. And then we can shuffle away the wand or the Bombard or the jet, really doesn't matter too much. I'm going to go for the wand here to get slightly better protection in order to get access to the Babel. And now here, okay, so previously you had options where you could like turn stuff into IP and things. With this one we're going to turn the Galatea into a Dingirsu, which attaches the Knightmare. So now you have a few options. You can like link these two into an IP, and then you have Ding Carrier IP, and your skeleton is live. So after you do your IP play, you'll probably link with the Dingirsu here, which then means you have a live Dingirsu in the graveyard. The great thing about doing it this way around, let me just set out. Great thing about doing it this way around is you can protect the Masquerena from battle or other destruction by just detaching from the Dingirsu, which is really, really solid here. You can even detach the Galatea and then get additional resources off there. But note, because we've recycled the skeleton, we weren't able to bring back the Galatea later on, so hence why you have fewer link materials available for you in this play. Alternatively, you could turn all three of them into a Longirsu, which is currently protected from destruction by card effects because it is linked, and that does mean that your graveyard has Knightmare and Skeleton already set up. If you need extra resources, instead of, so you can, one option is you can take away your opponent's resources, of course. You can just skeleton into your Dingirsu, which is always good. But if you need to generate more resources, your skeleton can summon your Galatea to shuffle something back and get you more stuff, or it can summon your Girsu to send like the wand if you need to do that. So really, really nice setup with this one. And then also the Longirsu is currently live. So you do actually have two banished machine monsters that you can shuffle back to send link stuff. So a really nice variation on this combo here. And now I'm going to take you through the Buster Lock version. So in the last version of this same specific combo, we are going to Buster Lock the opponent. So normal summon the Jet, turn it into your Longirsu, and go through the usual process, bringing it back, linking these off, getting your Fibrex, getting your Bombard, going into your Linkross with the 2 tokens. Of course, 1 token we'll get rid of immediately to bring out Longirsu, and then turn these 2 into our Union Carrier. Now we're not going to attach anything to the Bombard this time around because we're going to use it to attach the Buster in the end. So get rid of these 2 for the Formula Synchron, draw us a card. Oh look, it's the lovely Phantasme back again. Banish the Bombard to summon the Knightmare here. Link these 2 into the Galatea, banish the Knightmare to put the wand into the graveyard. So basically we're trying to end on Longirsu with a trap and the full Buster Lock there. It's not like the greatest Buster Lock that you can see if you have a look at some of the other combos with Scrap Recycler, so definitely check those out in the first version of the combo video if you haven't already. But we're then going to banish the wand to bring back the Knightmare. We use the Galatea. In this case, I'm going to put back the wand just to have it a little bit later. And this gives us our Crescendo, so let's just put that there. And then these 2 can link into a Longirsu, and Union Carrier can attach to it. Dragon Buster, Destruction Sword, locking our opponent out of the extra deck. So we've got this additional draw in hand. We've got Longirsu with Crescendo backing it up, so you can negate anything that you need to. Union Carrier doesn't really do a lot here, but hey, you've got the Destruction Sword lined up here. For the following turn, you have plays with the Knightmare going off. The graveyard isn't like impressive for this particular combo, but the idea is just to lock your opponent out, and if they can't play, then hopefully you're just going to win regardless. So those are all of the Jet plus Knightmare plus discard combos. So next up are 6 of my favourite combos which use Girsu and Scrap Recycler. Now, before I'd stumbled across this concept, which thankfully I found out from Jim the Kid 00's channel. As mentioned before, check out the card and watch his video on how his Chaos combos work and his Chaos deck profile. So beforehand, I didn't realise that you could use Platinum to get into a position of so much advantage. In fact, it's actually through a comment from Nimnim that I realised you could get to some of the insane boards that we're going to get to from just these 2 cards. The best thing about it being that normally if you opened up a hand with either of these 2 cards before knowing these combos existed, one of them was essentially a brick, because this is a starter card you'd have to normal summon, or this is a starter card that you'd have to normal summon, and there was no way around that. But now with the new combos which I'm about to show you, you can blow past that, and essentially one of these becomes a even better than a starter card that you have to normal summon. It becomes an extender. Now it doesn't allow you to push through additional hand traps, but it just makes your play so much more powerful. So there are 6 variations of this combo because there's so much stuff that you have to play with, and I'm going to show you the setup to get there, and then from there I'm going to show you my 6 favourite versions of it. Now of course there are alternative ways to play it, so if you think of a better way, let me know in the comment section, and I'd love to see what you guys have in store. But we're going to kick things off with a normal summon of Girsu and send a Knightmare to the graveyard, and then we're going to give each player a token. We actually don't have to worry about that, which is great. We're going to link these 2, because that token is a machine monster, into Platinum Gadget. And Platinum Gadget allows us to special summon the Scrap Recycler from our hand, but Platinum cannot be used for a link summon. So Scrap Recycler comes out and it's going to send an O-Lion to graveyard. O-Lion will give us a token, and the token with the Recycler will give us our Scrap Wyvern. So this can use its effect, bring back the Recycler and then destroy the Recycler. And then when the Recycler gets destroyed, Wyvern triggers again, and it's going to summon the Golem from deck. I'm just going to put it over here. And then it will destroy another card in the field, so we'll get rid of the Platinum Gadget. Now, Platinum Gadget, when it's destroyed by a card effect, or by battle, I believe as well. Yeah, by battle or by card effect, you get to special summon from your deck a level 4 Gadget monster. So that gives us Gold Gadgets. Now, if you had another machine monster that was level 4 or lower in hand, you'd actually be able to special summon it here, but we're actually going to fill up all of these zones anyway, so you don't actually have to worry too much about that. So now we can use the Golem, bring back the Recycler from the graveyard, and then put a Wand into the graveyard, and link these two for a Lib. The World Key Blademaster. Still haven't got my hands on an official version. If you want to ping me your own one, would love to feature it in these videos. Lib then activates, because we have the Wand in the graveyard now, it allows us to set the World Legacy Succession from the deck to the field. We can then activate that, bring back the Golem. It has to be to a zone that a link monster points to, so that's fine. And then the Golem can bring back the Recycler, and Recycler can trigger once again, and this time it's going to put the Skeleton into the graveyard. So this is the starting point of all of the combos I'm about to show you. A full board of monsters, and Knightmare, and Wand, and Skeleton, the three, like, the trinity of Orcust graveyard effects all together. And this is the starting point, and let's take you through the 6 combos. Alright, for Wombo combo number 1, we are going to link our Wyvern and our Gadget and our Recycler into an Appaloosa. And this is one of the few combos in Orcust that allows you to easily play around Nibiru, so really gotta love this one where you put an Apollo out on the board. Of course, you could get Nibiru before this, but remember you have all of that graveyard set up, so it's not gonna be an issue regardless. From here, we're actually gonna start using the graveyard. We'll banish the Knightmare in order to put a Gizmek from the deck into the graveyard. And then from here, we can banish the Wand in order to summon that Knightmare. We really just wanted an easy way to summon out an Orcust card from our graveyard here. We can then link the Knightmare and the Golem into our Galatea. Just going to put it here for the moment. And then from here, we are able to shuffle back the Wand in order to give us access to the Babel. And then we can banish the Skeleton from the graveyard to revive the Knightmare, and then we can exile into our Dingirsu. Dingirsu can attach the Skeleton, and then we can link these two into an IP Masquerena. So this board is really awesome. So you've got a triple negate Appaloosa currently available. You've got an IP which can link with your Lib into another link 4 or whatever you want, in order to not only trigger the effect of whatever you link into, but also Lib will be able to shuffle away an opposing card, which is really cool. And then on top of that, you've got your graveyard setup. So you've got a Skeleton, which can revive your Dingirsu to send one. You've got your Knightmare, which can send additional resources like the Wand to boost up your IP if you need it to be bigger. And you've also, for following turns, you've got the Gizmek as well, which you can use to trigger like a Zeraboros. So graveyard setup, no problem. Imposing board, really, really strong start for this 6 combo plethora. Okay, for the second combo, we're also going to go for that Appaloosa protection, turning these 3 monsters into the Appaloosa to kick things off. And once again, we're going to banish the Knightmare from the graveyard to put a Gizmek from the deck into the graveyard, and then bring back the Knightmare by banishing the Wand, and then turn these guys into our first Galatea. Just going to put it here so that it is linked for the moment. And then from here, We're going to use the Gizmex effect in the graveyard, and we don't want to banish the Babel, so we're going to get it out of the deck immediately. It does mean you risk losing your World Wand, but that's not really too much of an issue at this point. So put this back into the deck, get yourself access to the Babel, and then at this point we go for the Gizmex. Yeah, we'll proceed to summon the Gizmex, so banish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 off the top. Hope you don't banish anything too important, and get yourself access to your Gizmex. And then from here we can Xyz into our Dingirsu, use its effect to get rid of the token on the opposing side of the field, because why not? And then we can turn these two into an IP Masquerena. And now we're going to sacrifice our skeleton in the graveyard in order to bring out the Galatea once more. Let's put it over here this time. And as a result, we'll be able to use Galatea during the opponent's turn, put back the skeleton, and then that will be live again with the Knightmare effect anyway. So you don't really have to worry about that too much, because we haven't lost it through the Gizmex, for example. So the sacrifice you're really making here is, instead of having the simple skeleton in your graveyard prepared and ahead of everything else, you get your Galatea onto the field and ready to start doing some damage there. You've still got the Dingirsu in the graveyard to be summoned off the skeleton when you reset it. You've still got the Gizmex available to go and do some cool summons. You've still got the IP Masquerena with your Lib as the ultimate combo to remove 2 cards instantaneously, and you've still got the 3 negates from your Appaloosa. So if you want to boost up your Appaloosa to 4 negates, you can of course banish the Knightmare, send your wand, boost it up for another 800, or you can just protect your Masquerena. But that's the second version of the 6 wombo combo board. Okay, so next we're going to bust and lock our opponent. So to do that, we need to make a Union carrier, which we'll do with these 2 Earth monsters. Going to put it over here. Ignore the placement for now, it's going to make a lot more sense coming up. So next we will banish the Knightmare in order to put the Gizmex from the deck into the graveyard, and then we'll banish the wand and bring back that Knightmare. So you're going to see some interesting plays, because we want to preserve this gold gadget on the field, because we're going to use it to make an IP a little bit later on. So the Knightmare and the Wyvern will go into our Galatea. Galatea will get rid of the wand in order to give us access to Crescendo, which we'll need down the line. We can then link with the Galatea and the Lib into a Longirsu. This will trigger the Lib, shuffle away the opponent's token, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then from here we can turn the Longirsu into a Dingirsu, which means we now have 2 non-link monsters onto the field. These 2 can turn into an IP Masquerena. And finally we can use the Symbol Skeleton and revive the Longirsu. So now our Crescendo is live, we have Longirsu, we have an Appaloosa during the opponent's turn, which can go up to 3 materials if we use the effect of Orochi to summon itself. And of course the very last thing we need to do is equip our Longirsu with a Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. So very difficult lock to break, and a really nice way to do this one. So now we have another Buster lock, but instead of Crescendo we're going to give ourselves Babel and plenty of grave resources. We'll start off by turning these 2 into our Union carrier. Not that one. Where's Union carrier? There we go. And then once again we are, oh sorry, this time we're going to get an Apollo out by linking the Wyvern and the Lib. So a little bit of extra protection from the opposing cards this time around. Shuffle away the opponent's token with the effect of your Lib here as well. Then we will banish the Knightmare, send the Gizmex from deck to graveyard, and then banish the wand to bring back that Knightmare. We're then going to link the gold and the Knightmare, so I'm not going for an IP play this time around, in order to bring out our Galatea. Just put it here for now, and then we'll banish the skeleton in the graveyard in order to summon back the Knightmare once again. And then we will Xyz into a Dingirsu, which allows us to reattach this skeleton, which is always nice. And then we can link the these two into another Galatea. It's a little bit different this time around. That's the second Galatea for us. There we go. We're then going to shuffle back the wand and give us access to the Babel. Let me just find it again. There we go. Babel. Then we're going to banish 8 to summon the Gizmek. 7, 8. Banish those guys. Summon out the Gizmek. And now we can turn these two into the Longirsu, the long-awaited boss monster, and Union Carrier will then attach the Buster, of course, assuming you didn't banish it. So in this particular case I did, but let's pretend I didn't. There we go. So we attach the Dragon Buster there. That is the only risk with this variation of the combo. You will unfortunately occasionally banish your Destruction Sword and not actually be able to put it onto the field. However, if you don't, you end up with a Longirsu Buster Lock, double protection from Appaloosa, and during the opponent's turn you have Knightmare and you have your skeleton Dingirsu set up, so it's really easy to protect this guy from loads of opposing cards. I think this is generally slightly stronger than having the Crescendo, but it is susceptible to that risk. You just banish the Dragon Buster, so that's the unfortunate side of this version of the combo. Okay, so for the next version of the combo, we're going to go for another early Appaloosa, linking these two into it and shuffling away the opponent's tokens, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And once again, we're going to link into a Union Carrier, but this time we're going to do it with our two machine monsters. It doesn't really make too much difference, but this is just the way that I'm going to do it this time around. We can then banish the Knightmare from the graveyard. And as per usual, we're going to send the Gizmek from deck to graveyard and banish the wand and revive the Knightmare. Let's put it over here. Doesn't matter too much, but it should be fine. We can then link with these two for a Galatea. Let's just put it here. And then we can banish the skeleton from the graveyard and bring out that Knightmare once again. And then we can shuffle back the wand. That's the one I'm going to go for this time around, in order to give us the Babel. There we go. Extra resources. And now that we've got our access to the Babel, we're not going for... well, we are going for a Buster Lock, but this is another one of the ones that is potentially susceptible to your Gizmek screwing you over. So if you want to, you could just go for a Longirsu here, and then attach the Buster to it. But what I'm going to do is show you the riskier play, and we'll just assume that it resolves absolutely fine. And what that will involve is we're going to bring out the Gizmek by banishing the 8. And I know that the Buster is on top because I literally just stacked it on top of the deck. So let's banish a different 8. Pay 8, feel great, back in the days of Klee. And then we can link these two into our IP Masquerena. So this is just like a slightly more powerful play. And then from here we can exist into a Dingirsu and reattach that skeleton. So the Union Carrier then equips, where did I put the Buster onto the Dingirsu. And this end board is kind of nutty because during the opponent's turn you have a double negate from your Appaloosa, which you can boost up with your Knightmare, so there's actually a triple negate. You have an Orochi summon from the graveyard as well on top of that. You have an IP Masquerena play, which can potentially go into a Link 4 or something else if you want to with your other resources. If you do decide that you want to sacrifice your Dragon Buster protection here, which, by the way, yeah, is double protected because you can detach from your Dingirsu. You can choose to do a Link Summon with your Dingirsu, and if you do that, then your Symbol and Dingirsu play is immediately live. So even if your opponent has a way to out this portion of your board, that immediately gives you a resource which can tackle their board. So I think this setup is really like a blowout strong, but it comes with the added risk factor that is, created from Gizmek Orochi, which can potentially get rid of your Buster. Suppose you do banish it. This board is still super impressive with a double or potentially triple negate Appaloosa here, your Dingirsu setup, and your IP setup here too. So I think this is like a super strong way to build the board, even if it does come with the risk that maybe you won't have the lock of the Buster. So it really depends on which variation of the end board you want to go for all of the different combos from this, but this is my personal favorite one. Okay, so let's do another combo. Now this one's going to require you to have a slightly atypical extra deck slot, because we're going to set up a Bomber Dragon that can hit our opponent 3 times during their turn, and we have additional removal on top of that. So this is a like, you just want loads of removal, mostly of monsters kind of board. And we're actually going to be more link efficient here. So I'm going to start off by linking these two into a link 3. Now you can go for Trisbana here. I'm going to go for Decode Talker because I don't have to worry about accidentally banishing anything from my side. But that's that. I mean, generally it's Trisbana or something similar, but you need a link 3. You may as well have a dark one in order to fit in with the theme of the deck. And then we are going to banish the Knightmare to put the Gizmek into the graveyard and banish the wand to summon the Knightmare out. So from here we're going to make our first Galatea with these two. I'm just going to put it here for the moment. And then we will shuffle back the wand in order to get access to the Babel, because we need all of our effects to be live during our opponent's turn. And this way we don't have to worry about the Gizmek, getting rid of that, because we are going to use the Gizmek in just a moment. But before that, what we'll do is we will turn our Galatea into a Dingirsu, send the opponent's token to the graveyard, and then link these two into our IP Masquerena. And then we need to bring back that Galatea, because we're going to be able to turn it into a Longirsu during the opponent's turn. So we're going to put it back here by banishing the skeleton. Then we are going to bring out the Gizmek, and we do this before we put anything back, or at this stage, because we've got the Babel out of the deck, we've got the skeleton out of the deck, so everything important is now in the graveyard or on the field, or banished. So bring out the Orochi, banish the 8 from the top of the deck, so just go under there. And now from here we're going to link these two into our Bomber Dragon, and you have to kind of do that at the end, because otherwise you're going to be summoning to other link arrows, like when you summon the Masquerena, and you don't want to trigger it early, because then you'll just lose all of your board presence. So what do we actually have here? So during the opponent's turn, we have the ability to turn this Masquerena with this Lib into a link monster. If we do that, we'll have to summon it to a zone under the Bomber, so it will trigger the Bomber effect. However, you can do things like turn these two into a Unicorn, shuffle one with Lib effect, shuffle one with the Unicorn effect, and then bomb the field with the Bomber Dragon. Whenever you're going to use your effects though, remember to use your Galatea first, because or in the chain, because you need to get the skeleton back into the deck, so that then still during the opponent's turn you can Knightmare, put this into the graveyard, and then you can summon back the Ding to put it say here to trigger your Bomber again. And then you can also summon the Orochi to trigger the Bomber, so you've got one trigger here, one trigger from your Knightmare and the skeleton, and one trigger from your IP play. If you want to be really cruel, you can actually link with all 3 of these during the opponent's turn into your Longirsu, and then Longirsu, because it is linked, it won't be destroyed by card effects, even your own, which is a thing that Masquerena doesn't give you. Masquerena just protects you from your opponent's card effects, whereas Longirsu is protected from all destruction effects. So you can summon it here, trigger your Bomber, but then still be protected, and then during your opponent's turn still, you can do things like banish your Knightmare as Chainlink 1 to send one from the deck to the graveyard, and boost one of your cards, then chain your Longirsu, shuffle back both of these, and then when you resolve your Knightmare, you put the skeleton into the graveyard. So if you want to, this is one of the best ways to do your initial trigger, and because you used the Lib for the summon of this Longirsu as well, you get to shuffle another card. So this board, let me just put it all back together. This board gives you an insane number of removals, which is kind of why I thought it was worth showing to you guys. So yeah, from just those 2 cards, you've ended on a board with 5 cards on field, including a Link 4 that will wipe your opponent's board 3 times during their turn, plus you have a shuffle, and you potentially have another way of removing a linked monster from their field as well. So I've got 2 more combos to show you from the tuning version of the deck, where you're more likely to have the Jet Synchron in your opening hand. And this is another one of the combos that uses Platinum Gadget to turn 2 starter cards into essentially a starter and an extender. And it loses to all the same hand traps, but it just means that if you don't lose to those hand traps, you have a more powerful end board. So, normal summon the Girsu, use its effect to put Knightmare into the graveyard and then give each player some tokens. And then, like before, we're going to turn these 2 into a Platinum Gadget, and then Platinum Gadget will summon the Jet Synchron from hand, and then we'll turn that Jet into a Longirsu. Send a card from hand to grave to bring back the Jet. It's going to be worth it, we're going to get a draw anyway, and then link these 2, which will banish the Jet, and that gives us Fibrex, and Fibrex summons the Bombard from deck. Once again, we're going to turn Fibrex into Lane-Cross and get 2 tokens, and 1 token will immediately go back for the Longirsu. And that's how we get our Union Carrier again. Union Carrier really proving its worth with all of the Formula Synchron combos, or the tuning combos. And then we'll use the Carrier to put World Wand equipped to the Bombard, and synchro these 2. That goes to grave as well to give us a Formula Synchron and now ourselves a draw. So we had 3 cards in hand, now we got, we started the turn with 3 specific cards and 2 other cards in hand, now we have 3 random cards in hand, and including this draw. And then from here, we're going to banish the Knightmare in order to put a Skeleton from deck into the graveyard, and we'll banish the Wand to revive the Knightmare. And I am going to show you an alternative version of this combo in just a moment afterwards. We'll link with these 2 into Galatea, and then we will use the Galatea effect, put back the Wand, or you can put back the Jet if you prefer, and get access to Babel. Let's put that away. And then from here we banish the Skeleton and revive the Knightmare again. And then we can make our Dingirsu and attach the Skeleton. So we're leaving the token on the opposing field, but it shouldn't really matter too much. And then we can link with these 2 into an IP. So the advantage of this over the normal Girsu 1 card combo is you end up with 2 more bodies on the field, which can go into your link summons. Now they can't go into link summons this turn. Both of them have cannot be used as a link material the turn it is linked summoned as their first line of text. So neither of these can be used immediately. However, during your opponent's turn, you can potentially make like an Appaloosa here for 3 materials, which you can then boost up with your Knightmare, so it's like having a 4 material Appaloosa. You also have options to go into like a Zerobos, which you can trigger. You can attempt to trigger multiple times, or as we saw with the previous Wombo combo, you can go for like a Bomber Dragon, which you can then legitimately trigger multiple times. So some very cool options here. I really like how this combo works out, turning a card that is normally dead, like normally if you open these 2 and don't retwig your deck for it, one of these cards will be dead in your opening hand, because one of them is not going to contribute. You can do some of the interesting stuff I showed you earlier, where you can normal Jet and then use this with the Bombard to get some extra resources, but I just thought it was interesting to see what happens if you flip it on its head. You start off with the Girsu, which is the safer opening play, and then carry on from there. So while this combo probably isn't quite as powerful as the previous version of the combo, where you normal the Jet first and then go through there, it's safer because you've normal summoned a Girsu, so even if this gets ashed at the first point in the combo, which stops things from becoming really crazy, you still have an Orcust name on the field, so you can go into your plays like that. So I really like this version of the combo, but let me know what you guys think, and we're just going to go through a slightly different variation on this particular combo, and then we'll see what happens there. So for the last combo for this video, I'm going to show you another Buster Lock, and it's going to be another Buster Lock generated by the same hand as in the previous combo. So most of it is the same. We're going to Girsu, send Knightmare, summon some tokens, make platinum. I'm going to put it on this side this time around, summon the jets, turn the jet into Longirsu, and then summon back the jet for the DD Crow. Banish and send this to the graveyard to bring out Fibrex, and then Fibrex will summon Bombard from deck. Fibrex becomes Linkross and gives us 2 tokens. 1 token we get rid of for the Longirsu, and then we make the Union Carrier once again. But we're not going to use its effects just yet because we're saving it for the Buster. So we just go straight into the Synchro Summon here for the Formula Synchron. Get ourselves a draw, so we'll draw that Phantasme, and then we can use the Knightmare effect, banish it to put Wand into the graveyard, and then banish the Wand and summon back the Knightmare, and then this gives us our Galatea. Galatea is actually going to shuffle back the Jet this time around. I think this is one of the few times when we're actually shuffling Jet instead of the Wand, because we're going to have access to the Wand anyway. So we get the Babel out if you want the Babel. I'm going to go for Babel instead of Crescendo because we're not leaving a Link monster onto the field. So you could actually just end pretty much here. You could have a Galatea, and you could then equip to it the Buster here. But I think Dingirsu offers you a little bit extra protection, so we're going to summon the Dingirsu. I'm actually going to put it way over here, attach the Wand to it, and then use the Union Carrier to equip the Buster to it. So now we end with a board where this stuff doesn't really do a lot. The Platinum Gadget floats into a Gold Gadget, which is nice, but the Union Carrier doesn't really do anything. Whereas on this side we have full Buster Lock, so our opponent is totally locked out of the extra deck, and we have the protection effect from the Dingirsu, which is nice. On top of that, if we need to boost any of the board, there's the Knightmare here. And after you use the protection of your Dingirsu, you can put the Galatea into the grave if you want some extra resources off that by banishing this and the skeleton and then revive. And if your opponent does out this part of your board before you feel any need to interrupt them, you can just then, at this point, you'll have all of this stuff in the graveyard, which means you can then banish this, put the skeleton into the graveyard, bring back your Dingirsu and send something from the opposing field. So it's a pretty nice way to just close out this one, where you have a Buster Lock that's generated off very little in terms of what you're having to give. You've still got 3 cards left in hand, and you've only committed those 2 into this pretty impressive board. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you're interested in seeing the Chaos version of the deck, check out Jamie the Kid 00's channel, where he's included some really cool interactions with the deck and all of the new Chaos support from Toon Chaos. And I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you want to see any different variations of the combos or other deck profiles. Let me know in the comment section, and I'll be running the usual polls. And I'll see you all in the next video.